Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Lenovo Vice President Asia Pacific, Rod Lappin. Ladies and gentlemen, Lenovo welcomes you to Tech My Way. Would you please start to take your seats? Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, Lenovo welcomes you to Tech My Way. Would you please start to take your seats? Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Lenovo Vice President Asia Pacific, Rod Lappin.
Hi, good morning everybody. Good morning everyone. Obviously a very exciting day for all of us, and I want to welcome you all to the Lenovo Tech My Way event down here in Sydney. Fantastic. Now, before we get going, I know everyone's going to use their phones. I can already see you all using your phones, which is great. But I want to just ask you all to keep it on silent, if possible. Just out of respect for the speakers today, let's ensure that our phones are all on silent so they have an uninterrupted ability to give us and impart with us their wisdoms. It's also important you keep your phones handy because we do have a competition today. We are going to be giving away today to people here in the audience 2 Yoga Tablet 2 Pros. We'll be given away by our Managing Director, Matt Codrington here, who's in the front seat, front row. And basically all you have to do to win one of those 2 items is be the most creative post. Either tweet the hashtag TechMyWay, should be up there, coming up here in a second, or post a photo to that hashtag, and you'll ultimately go in the running for our creative team to identify top 2 winners through the session today. All right, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Roderick Lappin, or Rod Lappin, and I am the President of Asia Pacific for Lenovo. I want to welcome you all once again. I'm a snowboarder, kickboxer, I live in Tokyo. I don't think there's too much more you need to know about me other than that I've been in tech for a very long time, longer than some of you have been alive, I'd suggest. So I've seen a lot of things change in technology. I love change, love fast pace, and innovation. That's one of the things that attracted me to Lenovo 8 years ago. I came to Lenovo basically because of its ability to reinvent itself all the time. And today you're going to hear from some great speakers who've also reinvented some great history of their lives as well. In Lenovo we say change is the only constant, and we're continually evolving, and you're going to hear from Ashton a little bit later on, who was specifically involved in the design work for some of our yoga products that Matt's going to be giving away at the end of the session today on how we design and engineer some of our products. We take bold decisions, definitely. Very humble beginnings in 1984 from a group of engineers who actually started the company up, to today where we are probably the only company in the world that does full end-to-end infrastructure, from the data center of our biggest corporate customers all the way through to our smartphone range. You can see that the innovation's often rewarded at Lenovo. At CES this year, in 2015, we took 77 awards on product design and innovation from multiple independent publications. And all of this without touching on the yoga product specifically that Ashton was involved in. That product has been developed based on customer feedback, very, very intricate customer feedback. And if you haven't been onto YouTube and seen Ashton conveying some of those customer feedback sessions with both the children as well as all the way through to adults, giving him feedback on what a tablet should look like, I definitely recommend or encourage you to do that because they're really, really entertaining. But customer feedback's not everything, and we want to continue to listen to our customers. I want to tell you a very quick story before I invite up our first speaker. It's a story about a guy who's sitting on the beach in World War II in England, and he's looking for German planes. His job is to look for German planes that are potentially a threat to bombing in London. Now, he's sitting there on the beach in England, and his whole job is just watching the sky for German planes before he alerts his superiors to sound bomb raid sirens, etc., to make sure the citizens of London are safe. But his boss thinks he's doing a great job, but they recognize his job is very strategically important. As a result, they want to ask him, what does he need to do his job better? So they walk to him for customer feedback. What do you need for your job to be better? He said, well, listen, if I had some binoculars, I could probably see the planes better. I can hear them reasonably well. I could see them better. And if I could see them better, I could tell you how many planes, how much of a threat is actually there. Great, here's some binoculars. What else do you need? Well, we live in England, and we all know England's weather is not ideal, shall we say. In fact, quite rubbish. It's cold and wet most of the year. As a result, what would you like? He says, well, you know, if you put a glass roof over the top of me, I could still see the planes, but I wouldn't be getting wet. Or a blanket, potentially, would keep me a lot warmer as well. Okay, here's a blanket and a glass roof. But what does he actually want? What does that guy sitting on the beach actually want? What he actually wants is radar. He wants radar, that guy. But he can't perceive radar. He's the end user there. We want to take customer feedback. We give him all those products, the blanket, the binoculars, the glass roof. But what he actually wants is radar. And that's what's so cool about technology. And that's what our three speakers today, especially Ashton, is going to talk about, the evolution of technology and what technology really does. Because that guy doesn't want to be sitting on the beach. He actually wants to be sitting in the headquarters in London next to his superiors, telling them how many planes are coming, how quickly they're going to get there, and he can have a much speedier decision on how they address it. That's what, to me, technology is all about. And that evolution has run through the world consistently. And technology changes everything. So you can take customer experience and customer feedback, but sometimes the best inventions are often the ones that are solving problems people don't know they have. And I think at Lenovo you're going to see a lot more innovative stuff from us going forward, especially around the step change innovations around technology. All right, let me now go to our three speakers. I'm going to invite our very, very first speaker out. Her name is Marita Cheng. Marita was the 2012 Young Australian of the Year. She was rated the coolest girl in 2014 at CES. And what Marita's story is, in a nutshell, she was doing engineering down at University of Melbourne and noticed there was not many women in her class. And as a result, she founded the Robogals global team. It's an organization that she started to encourage young girls and women into the engineering and technology world. Now, she started that a little while ago. She's now got 30,000, she's educated 30,000 girls across 500 schools in 27 chapters: Australia, UK, US, Japan, Philippines, and New Zealand. It's an amazing story, and she's accomplished so much when she's only graduated in 2013. Don't forget to use hashtag #TechMyWay while you're listening to her. Please welcome on stage, ladies and gentlemen, big welcome, Marita Cheng.
So, I didn't know what engineering was when I was growing up. When I was in year 12, I saw an ad in the school newsletter. It said, interested in maths, interested in science, come to our engineering camp. So for 4 days, I got to build robots out of Lego, shoot water rockets into the sky, and make mechatronic catapults. I had a really great time, and I was so inspired that with engineering, you could work on world-class innovations that improve the lives of millions of people. My mum wanted me to be a doctor because I'm Asian. And so after I finished year 12, I went down to Melbourne for my Monash medicine interviews. They said, react to this scenario. John wants to study history, but his parents want him to do law. What should John do? And so I sat in my seat and squirmed uncomfortably, kind of like that baby. And I thought, they found out I'm a fake. And so I said, John should study history because that's what he's passionate about. And as soon as I was out of the room, I called my mum and I said, I'm doing engineering, and that's that. There were 3 girls out of my class of 200 who went on to study engineering straight out of high school. I thought that because Cairns is such a small and remote place, that when I got down to Melbourne, there'd be heaps of people, including lots of girls, just as passionate about engineering as I am. I was really surprised when instead, I found there were only 5 girls out of 50 taking the mechatronics engineering and computer science course at the University of Melbourne. I later found out that only 10% of engineers in industry are women. In my second year, I started building a simple robot with my friends, and so I approached the head of the electrical engineering department to ask for some funding. He said he was interested in getting some students to go to a school to teach year 6 girls robotics as a way to get them interested in engineering. I went away and thought, wow, I could actually make a difference to the number of girls in my class. And I thought, rather than just teaching one school, why don't we teach all the schools? And so I set about making that happen. I wrote up a plan, I recruited 24 of my friends, 3 of them showed up, and we designed robotics workshops, we called schools, and we recruited even more people to join us in the endeavour. And so Robogals was founded. We go out to schools with Lego robots to teach girls how to build and program these robots as a way to introduce them to engineering. And so the goal behind Robogals is to get girls interested in engineering and technology, careers and tertiary studies. In the first 3 months, we taught 124 girls from 5 schools in Melbourne. After that time, I left Robogals Melbourne to run without me and went overseas to London to study at Imperial College London, studying mechanical engineering. I really wanted to start up Robogals there so that we could be a global organisation. But when I got there, I was so overwhelmed that I didn't know where to begin. After 3 months there, I realised there was nothing like Robogals in the UK. And if I wanted to make a difference to the young girls there, I needed to be the one to do it. There were 15 girls out of 150 in my mechanical engineering class. No one came to the first 2 Robogals meetings in the UK. No one. So I sat in the cafeteria and cried the first time. And then the second time, I cried a little less. And then I did what I think any sensible young person would do. I emailed everyone who said they were interested and said, we had a really great meeting. It was really productive. When are you free again? And so by the 3rd meeting, we had 4 people show up. And by the end of my 6 months in the UK, I managed to find a group of young men and women who went on to spearhead the initiative even after I left. While I was in the UK, I noticed that a lot of student organisations weren't just in one place, but they tended to be national, probably because the UK is so tiny, and so it means that students who don't have much money may travel between cities more easily to collaborate. I thought to myself, if Robogals was national in Australia, we could have an even bigger impact. And so I contacted 4 other universities in Australia to gauge their interest. After about 6 months of emails, while I was in the UK still, they all said yes, and so I came up with the SIGN, which stands for Seminars Inducting New Executive Committee Members. As you can see, we're engineering students and not English majors, because of the C at the end, if you missed that. Yeah. And so the SIGN is held annually in each of our regions and aims to teach our executive members how to run their chapters, to share their skills, and most importantly, to build up a global community of people dedicated to this movement. Each of our executive committees has 6 people, Our first sign attracted 20 female engineering students from those 4 universities around Australia, and it was so successful, they all went back to their university, started up their own Robogals chapters, that 6 months later I returned to the UK and we expanded to another 5 universities there. And through using this method, we now teach robotics workshops all over the world. We try to make our robotics workshops contextual, so about medicine, society, the environment, about things that girls can relate to in their everyday lives, problems they can see in their world, so that they can understand the practical application of science that they're doing in these classes. And we also do trips where we have a car, we throw 5 students in, 30 robots, 30 computers, and then these students do a road trip for a week where they go to rural areas and disadvantaged areas and teach as many kids as they can. For example, this photo here was taken on this 2-week trip that students did, where they visited towns with populations of 2,000, where they taught every single kid they saw. It was organised, of course. It wasn't just, hey, you, come here. We also do expos, including activities at the London Science Museum, as well as competitions all over the world, First Lego League, RoboCup Junior, and hold our own competitions like the Robogals Science Challenge, where we get young girls in Australia to come up with a science experiment, to conduct the experiment, to film it, and upload it online to win some really great prizes. And one of my favourite anecdotes is the California Institute of Technology chapter were holding a little store at an expo when they were approached by some producers who said, oh, this is really interesting. And as a result of that conversation, they consulted with Disney Pixar on a movie about Tinkerbell, the first engineer. So I think that in life, you never know what's going to come up. You never know what the world has in store for you. But if you just take every opportunity and every moment and do it to the best of your ability, then the world will give you many great rewards in return. So we've held our signs in Melbourne, London, Sydney, Manchester, Adelaide, Bristol, Pasadena, Brisbane, New York, Toronto, and this was our most recent one in Perth for the Asia Pacific region, where we had 120 of our executive committee members from Japan, the Philippines, New Zealand, Australia, and China all gathered together to share their experiences, share their skills, and meet each other. As a result of all of our work, we've taught over 30,000 girls, and we're expanding every year. And for all of our efforts in Robogals, I was named the 2012 Young Australian of the Year, which has given me the opportunity to go around Australia and the world and share my story, share my passion about engineering. One trip that I did that was quite fun is I got to tour Australia with Jeffrey Rush. We visited all these schools and he told kids about acting, and I told kids about engineering. They all wanted to be movie stars. And I told them they could be engineering stars. Went down well. At the conclusion of that year, I thought really long and hard about what I would do going forwards. I transitioned out of the role of CEO of Robogals, and I decided to start a robotics company in my final year of university. I wasn't really sure what robots to build, but then I met people like Rob Cook. Rob has no mobility in his legs and only very limited mobility in his arms. He can just move his hand like that, which means that for simple tasks that we take for granted, such as scratching our eyebrow, getting a drink, or even for him hugging his wife, these are tasks that he can't do unassisted. And Rob isn't the only one. Around Australia and the world, there are 3 million people who suffer from some kind of spinal cord injury. To address this, I started Tumar Robotics. I went around Australia and I spoke to 150 different disability organisations and individuals to find out what they wanted. They said that they would want a robotic arm that was aesthetic, and so we created Jiva to have these beautiful curves. This is our third prototype. They said that they'd want something that was discreet, and so we made it so Jiva could tuck away at the side of someone's wheelchair. And they said they wanted something that was functional. And so we created we created this interface so that they can control relative movement. This here is grid control. It's based on how people with disability use their computer screens. So they say grid on, and a grid appears on top of their computer screen. They say it's enumerated 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They say 3, and a smaller grid appears here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They say 5, a smaller grid appears there, and every time a smaller grid appears, the mouse is in the middle. Then when they've got the mouse in the vicinity of where they want it, they say grid off, the grid disappears. They say mouse down 10, which means down 10 pixels, so the mouse will go down a bit. Then they say mouse left, and keeps going left. And then they say stop, and it stops wherever it is. And that's how they use their mouses. So I thought, let's do the same thing for our robot arm. But a robot arm exists in three-dimensional space. And so we created this, which allows for three-dimensional space movement. So you've got the grid to signify the XY coordinate, and then you've got the trapezoid to signify the Z movement coordinate. So let's say you want to go as far as possible over there. You'd select the top left corner, and then you would select the trapezoid, which was furthest away from you. And then the arm would go straight there. I hope that made sense. They can control the speed of their gripper, their rotations, their movements. This is joystick, where they can just place their finger on the touchpad and then move their finger around, just around that circle and around that column, and the robot arm will move around accordingly. And this here is the most exciting thing. This is our third functionality. It's called recordings. And so basically, someone with limited upper limb mobility can record all their favorite actions and store them here to access at a later time. It's kind of like the App Store on your phone, but for robots. And so how this applies in real life is a carer can give the robot arm a spoon and then record position 1 as spoon inside a soup bowl, position 2 as spoon vertically directly above it, position 3 right in front of someone's mouth. And so if someone's really hungry, they can play that on repeat at a super fast speed and just like eat lots of soup. But if the soup's too hot, they can press pause at any time and let the soup cool down. Or if they want to contribute to the family conversation, they can press pause, contribute to the conversation, and then resume their soup, all independently. And so here's some videos of Jiva in someone's home that we took last year. So this is Jeff Dossiter, and he has a bit more mobility than Rob Cook does. And here he's using the relative motion functionality in order to take his medication, which is something that many people request.
Okay, I've got tongue out time.
So this shows recordings. So it's got 2 positions recorded, and it oscillates between those 2 on repeat. And this here would use grid control. So if you've got the arm tucked away by the side of someone's wheelchair, you can just select furthest away, but at a lower level, and then the arm will go straight there. Otherwise, if the arm's tucked away and you want it to reach out to a door handle, you could use grid control again. So a really big problem in the assistive aid space is the lack of intuitive control interfaces. And so my team and I have actually been doing a lot of work in terms of making intuitive control interfaces. And right now, as we speak, we're doing usability trials. Since December, we've been trialing with 40 people with limited upper limb mobility. And they've been trialing a smartphone interface, an Android phone interface, and 2 different types of gyroscopic head movement interfaces via eyewear technology. So basically, Google Glass, but not Google Glass. Like, as in we're not using glass, but it's that same kind of technology. And so technologies like this mean that people like Rob Cook are able to, one day, get their sledgehammers off their ground, open all the gates around their farm, pat their dogs so that the dogs can herd the cattle, and also pick their hat up off their lap and put it on their head. When I was in high school, I read my brother's old editions of Time magazine. I was really inspired by the founding story behind Google. I thought it was fantastic how Larry Page and Sergey Brin were in their 20s and studying at university when they co-founded this global company together. As a teenager, it made me think, just because I'm young, it doesn't mean that I can't make a difference. It doesn't mean that I can't go out there and make something happen. And so their story, being young, going out there, making stuff happen, being innovative, it really inspired me to get into action. And so that's my message for all of you here today. No matter what age you are, technology has no age as a barrier. No matter what your mobility is like, technology enables. I encourage you to create technology, to contribute to technology, to have fun, to play. Thank you.
Thanks, Marita. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Marita, huh? Must be such a disappointment to her mum. Wanted to be a doctor. Damn, what a failure. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, look, I'm going to stay up here very quickly. I'm going to now introduce our second speaker. His name is Cameron Parker. He's the head of sales and marketing. Obviously, someone knows him. That's great. Thank you. Head of sales and marketing for Black Milk Clothing for the past 5 years, going on to new ventures now. 100% Australian-owned organisation. Multi-million-dollar business, did not exist 5 years ago, has over 200 employees, sells everything that they make, every single thing. No lost inventory. And what's more interesting, absolutely $0 spent on advertising, on traditional media. The whole organisation is born out of online, social, organic media growth. He started by stitching together leggings on a kitchen table for $10. Ladies and gentlemen, don't forget that hashtag #TechMyWay. Let me introduce you to Cameron Parker.
Thanks so much for having me here today, guys. I'm really excited to tell you about a little story of my 5-year journey building a little community around black milk. And I've got 12 minutes to do that, so bear with me. I'm probably going to have to rush through this because I know you're not here to see me, you're here to see someone else after me, right? But this image right here says a lot for me. It's the one image that I look at and I go, that's the community. It was actually taken in Berlin about 2 years ago, and basically it's a circle of women that did not know each other until they walked into a meetup that we held in Berlin. And this is what I'll talk to you today about. So where did it all start? It did start just over 5 years ago in Brisbane. James, a stay-at-home dad with 2 kids, was getting headaches in front of the computer. And he wanted to do something with his hands. And I guess most guys, if they want to do something with their hands, go down to local Bunnings and buy some tools? But no, James went to the cash converters and bought a sewing machine. And with the leftover change, bought some nylon fabric at Spotlight. Went home, thought, oh, you know, what can I do with this? Make myself a shirt. So he kind of attempted to do that. It sucked. It was a terrible idea. But what he really did love was doing something with his hands. And with the leftover money, went and bought some more fabric and thought, well, what else can I do with this fabric is make some leggings. He also tried that, and it sucked. But he absolutely loved it, and he kept on trying at it until one day a friend of his wife's came in and offered him $10 for a pair of leggings, and that's where the business idea started. But during that time, 6 months before even Black Milk had its name or started selling anything, a blog started. He started a blog called Too Many Tights. So, and this was a blog, obviously, by the name itself, for women who had too many tights in their wardrobe. They could join an online community and talk about all the latest trends in fashion, in legwear all across the world. Before November 2008, if you were to do that in Google, the type of community groups that you would find probably aren't the type of ones you'd want to join. So it was exciting, and so that's where the community started. I think that's fundamental, even before the term and the business idea for Black Milk came about 6 months later. But today, just over 5 years old, proudly made in Australia. That's right, we have 200 staff in total. 20 of those are just actually over in LA. We started distribution hub and customer service and about to start some manufacturing in downtown LA. But we've got 73 sewers in Brisbane that are pumping out about 2,000 units a day, and we're really proud of that because I guess if you know Brisbane, it's not exactly known for its fashion capital of the world, right? So it has been a really difficult job trying to build that business vertically. The only thing we don't do is make the fabric, but everything from product development, design, right through to dispatch is all out of Brisbane and LA now. So we've got over 3,000 designs. We've got so many because we don't follow seasons or trends. We literally have a release every week, every month, and that's about 80 designs a month. So there's something for everyone. Up until recently, in October, we were 100% pure play online. We just recently launched our sort of concept store where girls can come in to our head office. There's a showroom for them. They can come in and play dress-ups. They can try on some of our gear with our collaborations with shoe partners and stuff like that, play dress-ups, and also have a coffee and hang out, do some uni. And that's being a really good space that obviously has just evolved now for us. We are across 16 social media channels, and there's a couple of double-ups there with some of our sub-brands. That is a lot. We have a dedicated social media team in-house, and that's all they do for almost 365 days a year. There's 2 shifts a day, and all their job is to actually communicate with our fans in a friendship, intimate level, and actually do that. Our biggest account is Instagram. We actually hit 1 million last year, but as you're all familiar with the great cull of 2014, we lost 60,000 followers, so we dropped back under the million, which was killing me, but I'm looking forward to seeing that back up there. And Facebook, which until Instagram took over last year, was our biggest social media channel at 712. But importantly, the 370,000, I don't know what it is today, but under hash Black Milk Clothing, there are all the user-generated content, our community sharing the love of the brand, and that's so much content for us that we love. And last but not least, the online community of Sharkies all around the world. So how do we do that? I sort of break it down into 3 things. Be authentic, be a storyteller, and be accessible. So what do I mean by that? I guess authenticity is one of these sort of wanky marketing terms that people use all the time, right? But what does it mean for us? Now, what it means for us is basically being open, honest, transparent, and basically, I know we're in fashion, but we don't really consider ourselves in fashion. So if you have a look at the style of content that we produce, it's quite raw. Some people would never, it's not polished enough for that traditional fashion model. But we do. We love just being, Aussie-made, having been into that irreverency, and really being true to ourselves, which can be quite raw. Be a storyteller. And that's super important. We obviously started a blog, which is a form of storytelling. And if you have a look there, you'll see James's beautiful craft for storytelling. But every product has a description, and that's not a technical description. That's a story in itself. It's romancing the product and enabling our fans to fall in love with it and why it came about. It's even email confirmations and order confirmations. I don't know how many times you guys have bought online and the email confirmation when you've ordered is just, dear customer, thank you so much for your order. Your order will be shipped within 6 to 10 days. Please check this address. You've got 2 hours to let us know if it's wrong. That to me is such an important piece of communication which everyone opens, and same with shipping. But how many brands don't treat that as a storytelling opportunity? So we actually update both those emails almost every month, and that's actually updated with a story that's relevant for the collection. So really, if you have a look through the brand, it's like an onion. There's so many layers, and storytelling is such a critical part of what we've done. And be accessible. So for us, this is actually basically giving a shit about our customer, caring to a whole new level. Up until really a year or 2 ago, James and I were across those multiple social media channels. That means a girl could jump online on Facebook and go, you know what, I would love to see a tiger on a swimsuit. And James would go, you know what, that's a damn good idea. I'm going to go design it this afternoon. I'm going to print it in our in-house printing machine. Tomorrow I'm going to get the sewers to sew it up. And tomorrow afternoon I'm going to shoot it on one of our in-house models and show you guys. And if you like it, let's start selling it next week. And I think that's a beautiful model, which I think a lot of businesses these days being vertically integrated, quick to market, and responding directly to customer needs and suggestions and listening to them. So more recently, over the past couple of years, we take that accessibility to a new level, which is actually going and hanging out with our customers. Now, this has meant that James and I are traveling all around the world to some amazing, incredible places, each capital city in Australia. We've done New Zealand, Northern America. James did one in Dubai, and I've done with him in Europe. And that's actually going out and meeting them in a real world and sitting down having a picnic under the Eiffel Tower. But the amount of knowledge and care is what enabled us to build such a beautiful community. So, brings me onto the community. This is the average sort of washing day of a Sharky. It's fairly colourful, lots of leggings, and they roll around a nylon all day. You're probably wondering, what the hell is this Sharky thing? And that comes back to that storytelling element. When we were growing in year 2, basically, we'd release on a Tuesday at 2 p.m, and that's quite early in the UK. That means getting up in sort of like 5 a.m, and then in New York, staying up late. And we'd have tens of thousands of Sharkies around the world logging onto our website to buy the new collection. But obviously being made in Australia means that we don't make tens of thousands of units of these leggings in one design. It could be hundreds, which means they sell out in minutes, if not seconds. So with tens of thousands of people logging onto your website, some of you are probably familiar, it crashes. And when it crashed with all these women around the world, it was quite obviously a traumatic experience. And on social media, you could feel the tension. But what we did is treat that as a storytelling opportunity, and some brand people would just go, sorry for the inconvenience, our website is under maintenance or something, and sorry for the inconvenience. But we thought, no, let's tell a fun story. Let's actually have some fun with this. So the story came about that, I don't know if you remember Lady Gaga in a meat suit famously a couple of years ago. So we felt like Lady Gaga in this meat suit, jumping into an ocean, and the ocean being filled with apex predator known as a shark, and the shark coming to attack us, and it's a feeding frenzy, and there's blood and destruction. It's really stressful, and so that's what the customers latched on to. We are sharks. We are absolutely ravenous, and we want the nylon, nom nom nom, and so Sharkies was born out of a story. What do they look like? As you can see, it's more around psychographic than it is demographic. I mean, our Sharkies, a lot of them are in the 50-plus club. If you're in the 50-plus club, you get a gift voucher from us. In the 100-plus club, we actually send you a money can't buy piece. Then we have 200-plus club, which means I send you an email because you've spent a hell of a lot of money with the brand. I go, what do you want? We will design a custom piece just for you. And there's at least about 80 people in the 200-plus club. There's one girl in the 600-plus club. And she actually has a tattoo of the Black Milk logo on her shoulder too. So they're hardcore fans. But when I say that, I did some stats. About 1.7% is in the 50-plus club. That's about 2,500 customers in that. But has generated around 35% of our revenue over the past few years. So it shows just how important that loyal fan base is just in the 50-plus club alone. But as you can see, it's quite diverse. We've got some men who are Sharkies, and they totally rock a pair of leggings. Even just the cycling community get into it. But you've got mums with kids, you've got beautiful grandmothers over there, but it is psychographic. There's some people that wouldn't wear black milk, but that's totally cool. But globally, when we started this brand, these creative misfits that basically wearing a pair of black milks, putting on like a superhero costume and gave you this amazing confidence, it's a beautiful, empowering thing. Now, these Sharkies, basically in 2011 in October, I got an email from a girl called Andrea Ferraro, and she's in sort of the central coast of America. And she was a massive fan, but she'd walk down the street, and she was the only one in town wearing these crazy leggings. So you can imagine the type of looks that she would get. But she felt a bit insecure about it. But what she did find is that on Instagram and Facebook, she was finding other girls just as passionate about the brand and saying, you know what? I'd love to actually connect with these. So she sent me an email and said, look, I'd love to start up this community group, and I can share ideas and styling, and there's a couple of pieces I don't really wear. Maybe I could swap it with another Sharky around the world. And I said, this is a great idea. Let's do that. And I think the beautiful thing about this community, it wasn't a contrived big marketing strategy that was pushed out. It was pure, it was natural, it was organic. And I think the best communities can form around that. And my job was just around nurturing, fostering, and making sure the community was protected in a safe environment for girls to feel safe about posting photos, empowering women and body confidence. So there's actually 60 groups, over 60 groups around the world. The first one was the discussions page, and that's got about 4,000 people in it. Followed by the biggest one is the buy, sell, swap. There's 14,000 people just in that purely trading and buying and swapping black milk all around the world. Because of the limited nature, there's some pieces that 4 years ago we produced actually increase in value. If you jump on eBay, a lot of the stuff that we did ages ago is like triple in value. So it's like a black milk stock exchange, depending on how rare a certain piece is. But you can see it's actually broken down with hobbies and special interests. There's book clubs, there's beauty clubs, there's animal lovers, gamers, foodies, get fit, and then obviously regions. There's probably another 20 that aren't on there that are sort of more unofficial, broken down to real niche groups like Harry Potter fan groups, because also we've done a Harry Potter license deal with Warner Brothers. Now, what was the next evolution of that? When you bring a community online, and they start developing this relationship over the course of 12 months, they actually start wanting to meet up in real world. And so we did our first ever meetup a couple of years ago in New Farm Park, and we posted heaps of content around that going, oh my God, we had the best day hanging out with you guys. And everyone else around the world was super jealous, and they're going, I want to have a meetup. I want to connect with these girls that I've been chatting to online. And then these meetups started, and that's where James and I were traveling around, actually hanging out. and actually getting to know our customers on a really amazing level. Those meetups that were sort of picnics then evolved into the first ever SharkyCon 3 years ago in Vegas, where the girls go, I had so much fun, but let's actually go away for a whole weekend. And the first ever SharkyCon was in Vegas 3 years ago, and that was 60 people coming into Vegas for a full weekend and hanging out. We've done that every year. We've done one in top left is actually Mallorca. It was SharkyCon Euro, and that was, I think, about 180 people coming in from across Europe, and some came in from the States, and even one girl from New Zealand. And the biggest one, central down the bottom, is SharkyCon Australia, which is part of our birthday. And that's over 500 people coming in from across the world for a weekend in Brisbane. Now, it's not all just partying and getting loose. It's actually an amazing time to do storytelling and being accessible and authentic. We actually, on the Friday, have 2 tour buses, and all the girls come in and they get the full tour. Because we're basically 200 staff in Brisbane, can't fit into one site. We're across 3 buildings. So we organise a tour bus and they get to actually go. It's like walking into Willy Wonka's Nolan factory for these guys, They absolutely are in awe and so excited. And so we give them a tour. They get to meet the people that sew it. They get to meet the people that design it. They get to meet the graphic designers, the customer service, obviously the marketing team, and the social media team that they actually spend all time, at night talking to on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr. And it's an amazing, amazing weekend, and these people walk away with the best time of their lives. One story, I remember going to a meetup in Canberra, and that was a couple of years ago, and there was a girl who had sad, unfortunate circumstances where her partner died, and she had 2 young kids, and she was in tears just going, I don't think you understand how much this community means to me. When my partner died, the first people to my door were not friends that I went to school with. There were these random strangers that I'd met online that came around and assisted me picking up my kids from school, cooking them lunches, and she said, I cannot thank you enough. And honestly, it's amazing the stories that I've heard over the years and how important the black milk community has meant to some people. There's a photo from SharkyCon Vegas in front of the Bellagio. It's quite an impressive sight if you imagine. The last one was 350 people, and we just took over the whole, if you've been down the Strip, we basically did this massive walk from the Mandalay Bay, and everyone wearing nylon. I tell you what, the amount of people, and we seriously stopped traffic. People were going, what the hell's going on here? 300 women all dressed in Lycra? It's an insane sight. So a lot of this that I'm talking to is the more you know, the more you care. And we really are like an onion. There's so much, we're so content rich, and the stories we can tell internally. And you can see here, if you start, stalking across our social media, there's lots of different roles for all the social media. There's lots of behind the scenes. We show the team in video and in content and interviews, the photo shoots. They get to meet the models, and they see the whole creative process from design right through to packing. In terms of, obviously, when you have customers who are in the 200 plus club, they get to even know the packers. And top right-hand corner, you'll start seeing the packing team. When they order, they'll go, say hi to, one of the girls in the packing team, and they'll start writing poems and love letters and drawings, and that drawings became a thing. And there's even a hashtag on Instagram called BM Drawings. There's a couple of hundred photos of these drawings that customers and our team at the office start doing. You can see actually I've got a screen grab of BM Drawings. But Instagram being our biggest one, with all the amazing community photos, over 370,000 of them. We even have hashtags for sizing, being online, but empowering the community, going, you know what, if you're comfortable sharing with other girls who obviously don't know how to style or how to wear it, well, actually, I wear a medium, and this is BM medium, and they do that. And you can see just BM medium, there's over 3,000 photos of girls that are going, you know what, hey, if you want to wear black, you can totally rock it, and that's across all the sizes. Doesn't matter what shape, size, how you style it. And back one. We did that on the website about 3 years ago. I spoke to my developer and said, oh my God, we're getting so much amazing content. What can we do with this? And the best thing that we could do is put it under our product page. The 6-foot model, although she looks great in a pair of leggings, is not what sells the brand and not what makes people confident about wearing it. It's the hundreds and hundreds of photos of the community around the world, all different shapes and sizes, and styling. And when you're online, that social proof has been so critical. I had to take it down for 4 weeks as we re-platformed the website due to the crashing. And I remember seeing so many comments from girls going, you know what, I don't really want to buy it. I want to see these photos from girls totally rocking this. And it's incredible looking through the photos because it's so diverse. But we celebrate that. There's no real moderation at all, actually. In fact, if a photo doesn't appear, I get an email from someone going, "Didn't you like it?" I go, "Oh, have a look." "No, actually, you just spelt it incorrectly." And she'll re-tag it and it'll come up. It's like they're like 5 minutes of fame. It's amazing. And I see a lot of brands doing that these days, and it's so important. So as I said, being authentic, and as you can probably see from a couple of examples, we really are true. You know, we are open and honest to our fans. Storytelling, so important to what we do. And if you don't do that, how can people start to build a relationship with you? And being accessible, and that means us actually getting in there and actually having a conversation with the most important people in your company, which is your consumers. And I'll leave with one final quote from a mate of mine, Simon Sinek. The group that offers us a sense of belonging, a sense of confidence and a certainty of or support and protection is the group that earns our trust. And when we trust our group and our group trusts us, we have the confidence to do remarkable things. And I could not be more proud of the community that we at Black Milk are fostered and nurtured into this amazing international community. And thank you so much for listening, guys. All the best.
All right, Cam.
Thanks, man.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for Cameron, huh? Fantastic. I like one of his quotes was, "It's not all about parties and getting loose," which would insinuate that there is an element of it is parties and getting loose. That's okay. I'm also a bit concerned about the customer that has 600 items bought, that has a tattoo on their back for the company. Cam, if you're listening, I wouldn't be concerned about a mysterious car sitting out the front of your house at all. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, last speaker. And without further ado, AK needs absolutely no introduction. He's a great balance of entertainment, technology, entrepreneurialism, as well as investment. For Lenovo, he is our #1 product engineer, integral in the design of our most popular premium tablet, our Yoga range. He's extremely passionate, as you're about to hear, about technology and innovation. Tech My Way is all about Ashton, and I'm sure you'll get an enormous amount from his speech today. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome on stage Ashton Kutcher.
There's my posse. That's my entourage right there. They just came rolling in. How you guys doing? You good? Cool. I really struggle with what I was going to talk about today because I don't take these opportunities lightly. To be able to stand up in front of people and talk and share how you feel about things is a privilege and an honor, and I appreciate it, and I appreciate you listening. So I thought long and hard about it, and I usually, when I stand in front of folks, I end up in a Q&A. And so I started to think about, well, what would be the questions that I would ask myself? And I came up with a litany of questions. And then I realized somewhere along the way that somebody once told me when I was in school that there's no such thing as a dumb question. Did you guys ever hear that? That's okay, they said it down under as well. And so somebody said there's no such thing as a dumb question. And I think that that's complete and utter bullshit. I think there is absolutely such thing as a dumb question. I understand why they said it, because they wanted to inspire curiosity in us as kids and encourage us to learn. Because at the foundation of anything you ever learn, it starts with a question. But there is a dumb question, and a dumb question is any question that you could simply find the answer if you applied a little bit of personal effort. And I think now that the internet exists, we can no longer say there's no such thing as a dumb question. In fact, almost most questions are dumb questions. Like, it just gets to the point where you go, buddy, go look it up. And I really wish when I asked that question, if it was something that I could easily look up, that person would have said to me, go look it up, you can find it. And granted, back then I had to use the Dewey Decimal System and pound through a library of books that didn't make any sense why they got put where they were put. But they should have said, go look it up. And so I was pondering this, and I recalled, last week I was walking with Mila Kunis, who's my fiance. I get to have sex with her. It's a We're walking, and I had baby Wyatt. We're on a hike, and I had baby Wyatt strapped to me. She's beautiful. I'm telling you, this kid is, I'm freaking out. It's new, but it never gets old. So I'm hiking along with baby Wyatt, and Mila has this movie coming out that may have come out down here called Jupiter Ascending. And it's all about this intergalactic war for the most valuable resource in the universe, which is time. And Mila's character is the queen of humanity. I have sex with the queen of humanity. It's pretty funny. Anyway, so we're walking along, and she had just got done doing this giant press junket where you sit in a room for countless hours with journalists, and they ask you questions about the movie and the directors and these things. And she'd done like 2 days of this and probably talked to 50 journalists. And we're walking, doing our morning hike, and I say, all right, let me guess. I want to guess the questions that you got asked 100 times, because usually it's always the same questions. And so my first question was, in the movie, the most valuable resource is time, and they actually mine human beings and extract the innards of human beings to create this resource of time. I said, in your universe, what is the most valuable resource? And her answer was time as well, that time was the most valuable resource, and I would say that's probably my answer too. But she said, nobody asked me that question. And I was kind of shocked. I'm like, how did they not ask you that question? That's what the whole movie's about. And nobody asked you that question. And I said, well, wait, you played the queen of humanity in the movie. I said, if you were the queen of humanity and you could change one thing about the world, what would be that one thing that you would change? She said, nobody asked me that question. I said, how could they not ask you that question? And not that these are brilliant questions, or not that these are like beyond the moon questions, but they're thoughtful questions about her movie. It's okay, baby. It's okay, baby. I'm sorry. That's like a flash. I'm like, I want to go home. Let the baby cry. I'm used to it. It's fine. I can go this whole thing. So anyway, I couldn't believe that she hadn't been asked these questions. And then I was like, well, what questions did they ask you? Like, what dress are you wearing? And she said, yes, they asked that. And I thought, really? Really? You had an opportunity to sit with, granted, I prize her as the most valuable person in the world to me, but you had a chance to sit with Mila Kunis, and that's what you asked her? What dress are you wearing? And so then I started to think to myself, well, there are dumb questions. There are questions that waste your time and my time and everybody else's time. I started thinking, well, what is a great question? What constitutes an exceptional question? And I was like thinking about it and grinding on it and thinking about it. And what I realized is that a great question is a question that's armed with knowledge, that's armed with care and thought, and that pierces into the gray matter of the world and the universe that we live in and looks for problems and inconsistency and broken things. Great questions cause us to sit for days and ponder a solution. Great questions expose problems, and problems are the seeds to solutions. Great questions expose roadblocks, which are an entrepreneur's opportunity. A great question sometimes will arrive at a no, which is the playground for a rebel spirit. And I have the great opportunity in my life to work with a lot of unbelievable entrepreneurs that are solving extraordinary problems. And the one thing that they all have in common is they all ask extraordinary questions. And they build their businesses from these questions. They build technology from great questions, questions that parse apart existing businesses. They tear them down. They tear down conventions that we just assume are true. And they expose this magical thing that exists behind every great business. Time. That most magical resource in the world. they find ways to save time. I think time exists on two vectors. It exists on one vector, which is longevity. It's a vector that goes on and on and on, and we're always in our lives seeking longer lives, better lives. It exists on another vector, which is quality. We want better lives, lives that are more filled with wonder and enjoyment and entertainment. Those are the two vectors of time, and those are the two vectors that every single business, every single great business exposes, and they expose it through great questions. So, I think that the most wonderful thing in the world, the most wonderful luxury in the world, is being able to take your time with the things that you want to take your time with. It's an amazing thing to be able to write a long-form handwritten letter and send it to someone. It actually means more because it's got time involved in it. It's an amazing thing to be able to take a stroll through the park because you get to take your time and breathe and actually appreciate the things in this world that are wonderful. So, back to questions. What is the most magnificent question? Well, I have a question that I like to ask to people that I admire in the world. And when I run into someone in the world that I admire, and I get to run into these people quite frequently, I like to ask this one question, and that is, what's the best advice that you've ever received to get you to where you are? And I get amazing answers. And I ask this question in a very particular way. I don't ask it when I'm in crisis. I don't ask it when I need advice. I ask it proactively because I sometimes think that when you ask people that question of what is the best advice, when you need advice, you'll paint their answer into your question. And if you ask them while you're in crisis and you expose your crisis to them, they'll give you an answer that actually that is completely colored by their own experience and their own problem, which isn't always the best thing to do. The best thing to do is build up this reservoir, this library of extraordinary advice that you can access anytime you're in crisis. And that's what I do. When I come up against a problem or an obstacle or a roadblock, I then go back to my index of advice that I've received from extraordinary people. And I look at it, and usually the answer's already in there. So I thought last night, as I was not taking this opportunity for granted, I decided to reach out to some folks that I thought you guys might know and ask them what the best piece of advice they've ever received was so that I could share it today. So I reached out to my fiance, Mila. I mean, that was an easy one, right? And she said, don't let your ego get in the way of asking for help. To me, that is great advice. And to me, I can use that advice all the time. I reached out to Taylor Swift. I figured, she's like the top of the charts right now. I wonder if she would actually even answer my email. She did, which is amazing for the person who's maybe the most busy person on the planet right now. She answered this email because she thought it was important that I share something with you. And she said, keep your hopes high and your expectations low. You're not entitled to anything, but there's nothing that you can't earn. I love that one. You're not entitled to anything, but there's nothing that you can't earn. And most importantly, enthusiasm can protect you from absolutely anything. Ooh, that's good. That, when I watch her do interviews, now I understand a little bit more about her because she's always has that enthusiasm, that bubble going. And I'm like, you're protecting yourself. I dig it. I like it. So I reached out to Bradley Cooper. He's got one of the #1 movies in America, this American Sniper movie, which I think is fantastic. And he said, hey, pal, thanks for asking. Often I thought about this old cartoon commercial when I was a kid that sent the message to be yourself and just how vital that is to growth. And when I finally realized that notion some 30 years after watching those commercials in between Saturday cartoons, I found a true difference in my daily life. Knowing that we all have ourselves, and all we have is ourselves, our uniqueness. That is what we can use to cultivate in order to create or do whatever it is that we want to do in this life. Just be yourself. Simple advice, but it's really good advice. And I can imagine that advice coming handy in a moment of crisis. So I reached out to Chris Rock, and he I love his advice. That's a hard one. How about 1? People that can't listen can't lead. 2, one of the keys to success is the ability to listen to people that you know that you are smarter than. And I read that and I was like, oh man, oh no, the whole thesis of my entire thing, which is like there are no dumb questions, but there are dumb questions. Maybe I just undermined myself with that piece of advice. And I do think that that's important. I do think that it's important to listen to people that you know that you're smarter than, because you may not be. And then he signed it the CEO of nothing, which I thought was pretty good. And then I reached out to Eric Schmidt, who's a friend of mine, and he said, always return phone calls. Take the time. If you put good energy out, it comes back. Whenever possible, say yes. Life is just who you travel with. I thought that was pretty killer. So, and this list goes on and on and on. And what I found is like most successful people always have more than one piece of advice. So that's my question. That's the question that I like to ask, and that's the question that leads me to solutions and leads me to roadblocks sometimes and leads me to internal quandary, which leads me to be a better person, I think. So then I go to what is my advice to other people? What is the question that for me is enduring? And the advice that I would give, if I asked myself my own question, I would say the number one piece of advice I've ever received was that there's no substitution for hard work. I found a quote from Edison that said, opportunity wears overalls and looks a lot like hard work. I shortened it, took out the overalls thing, and then told a bunch of teenagers about it, and it went viral on the internet. But I think opportunity does look a lot like hard work. I've never met a successful person that doesn't work hard. I think it's just a constitution, and I think that you have to have that grit when you come against obstacles to work through them. The second thing, being smart is incredibly sexy. I think that being smart is one of the sexiest things in the world. I think that when you're young and you're going to school and you're a kid and you're in school and you're in class, dumb kids like to make fun of you because you're smart, and they like to pull you down because they don't want you to excel, because when you excel, they feel like less. And so they try to beat you down about being smart. And I think that people get pinned underneath that, and then they don't aspire to be as great as they could possibly be and as smart as they could possibly be. And I think I'm tired of it, because I love smart people and I think that they're sexy. Generosity has to be at the core of anything and everything we do. Some of the best advice I ever received is somebody once told me that the difference between good and bad is very simple. Is it good for you? Is it good for me? And is it good for the greater good? If it doesn't fall into those 3 categories, it is bad. Is it good for you? Is it good for me? And is it good for the greater good? And if our actions are oriented by actions of generosity that are good for me and good for you and good for the greater good, we'll always be moving the boat forward, the boat that we're all in. I think generosity is paramount. Lastly, it's a piece of advice that I learned when I was studying to play Steve Jobs in the movie. And he said that when you look around the world, most people get trapped in this world and they assume that we're here to live in it. But that when you realize that everything around you was built by people that are no smarter than you are, that's when you'll really step into your life. And you'll decide for yourself that you can build things that other people can use. And you can actually build this existence around you, this life that we live in. And somebody once said, if you want to see the future, if you want to know what the future looks like, build it. And I agree with that. Absolute. So, what's the question I most often get asked? The good question I most often get asked. I mean, I do get asked like some questions that I'm like, what's Brad Pitt like? He's awesome. He's amazing. I once saw this guy. I'm not kidding. I walked into a room, and it looked like he had lights that were just built for him. It was a regular room, but it was like his hair was like, it was like a wind machine. There was no wind. It was just Brad Pitt being sexy and brilliant. Hate that guy. Love him. Hate him. But the best question that I commonly get asked is, I invest in a lot of technologies. I invested in Airbnb and Uber and Spotify and SoundCloud and a bunch of companies that are sort of leading the way in commercial software. The question I get asked all the time is, what's next? What's on the horizon of technology? And I never really answer the question that well because I think like the thing that I always think is next is I wish I would have thought of that. Like when you get an idea and you get confronted with it and somebody says something, they go, oh, well, this is what we're building. And you go, oh, God, why didn't I think of that? This guy's going to change the world with that. And so I wish I would have thought of that is like a big like compass for me with what's next. But if I looked at the tech sector as a whole and I sort of break it down, I think there are specific opportunities for entrepreneurs that are out there today that should be pursued because they're things that are actually going to leapfrog the existing technology. A lot of people build to where the puck was instead of building to where the puck is going. And I think knowing where the puck is going is really important. So I'll break it down as quick as I can. I think municipalities and governments are ripe for disruption. I think they sit on tons and tons and tons of data and tons of waste, and they take our tax money and waste the shit out of it and then hand us back a product that is subpar, that's extraordinarily subpar. And I think technology can walk into those municipalities, take that data, and actually build smart solutions out of it. I think we can think about things like traffic and environment and how much energy our city is using and how much waste there is. And I think we as entrepreneurs can step into these municipalities, our municipalities, that we pay taxes for, and make them better with our technology. There's huge opportunity there. Next up, VR and AR. This virtual reality stuff and augmented reality stuff is unbelievable. If you haven't seen it, if you haven't experienced the newest stuff yet, I strongly urge you to do so. It's mind-blowing. You know, these screens that we manipulate, they started out as like movie theaters that we had no remote control over, and then they became televisions that we had to walk up to and change the station, then we'd run back and sit down. I was alive when that happened. Then, you know, it got closer and it became a computer screen, and we manipulated it with a keyboard and a mouse, and now it's in our hand and it's here and it's about to be right here. And when it gets right here, it gets really, really cool. Because this world can become whatever we want it to be. In a world of AR and VR, you can walk down the street and have monsters jump around corners. I can leave virtual digital notes for my wife on the refrigerator. I can leave notes for my child. I can leave a video here for you. The entire world becomes the playground of our technology, and we can place things in space and then recall them whenever we want. We can be as powerful as Bill Clinton, who has an ear man who walks around with him and tells you who everybody is and one thing about them, so you actually know who they are and you know who you're conversing with, and your memory recall doesn't have to spend time on that. We can have superpowers. You know, why do we settle for 2020 vision? It's kind of silly because it's not the best vision. Vision can get a lot better than that, and we can improve it. We can have vision. I can see the guy in the back row, and I can see what your reaction is to what I'm saying if I had better vision. And once the screen is here, we can have that. Sound. I should be able to hear you across the room. I should be able to hear you down the hall. I should be able to click something and hear you without having to put anything up to my head. I think there's huge opportunities about our input sensories. And I think we're about to change our output sensory. You know, it started with the mouse, which was this cool tool that got stolen from Xerox, and then Apple took it, and then other people took it. And then all of a sudden, you know, we went, oh, wait, this is the best manipulator that we have is our finger, and we're going to do it. And so we've been working on these platforms ever since, trying to make them more optimized for finger manipulation. But at a certain point, we should kind of go, wait a second, why did they use a pen in the first place? Did you not want to stick your finger in an ink quill and have ink on your finger all day? No, because it's just not that agile. It's not as agile as we could be. And if we were superheroes, we would have more agile pointers than this. And so I think there will be a more agile pointer, and it might be your voice, or it might even be your thoughts. There's technology that exists today that if you focus hard enough, you can flip a switch. These could be the input sensories of the future. That's exciting. ID. You know, there are all of these wearables that we have that are starting to come out. And they're getting smarter and smarter and smarter. But once they really know that it's me, permissive access to the entire world opens up. These things are going to read our gait. Every human being has a different gait. it turns out. And we have different heartbeats. And our heartbeat, as it's oriented to our gait, is different. And our sweat is different. And once this sensor on my wrist knows that it's me, I can have permissive access to anything. I could have permissive access to my bank account, to rooms, to buildings. I could have permissive access to information. If somebody wanted to leave information for me in a certain place with my permissive access, I could then recall that information. That's pretty cool. How many people here have a phone in their pocket? How many people have a screen? Like virtually every single person in this room. Why do we need 500 screens in a room? What if my permissive access that knew it was me, knew all of my preferences, knew what I wanted, knew the UI and the OS that I wanted to have on this screen, and I could just have it here? Because it would say, hey, Ashton, is that you? And I'd say, absolutely, it's me, check. Okay, that's me. There's my screen. And I'm going to manipulate it with my pointer that's better than my finger, because sometimes touching it isn't always the best way. And so then this liquid product of screens that the price point keeps driving down, you see these tablets that are $100 that are junk. Well, actually, that tablet that's $100 that's junk, we can start to throw our OS onto it, and it doesn't have to be that intelligent because my permissive access is. So I think that that's in the future. I think that's really exciting. There's biotech, which I'm running out of time, so I'll go really short on that. I saw this thing the other day where this guy had used the phosphorescence of jellyfish and implemented it into plants. Plants are easier than people because you have to deal with all these regulations in order to get things approved. And so he made this phosphorescent plant. And he's speculating that he could build phosphorescent trees for our streets instead of street lamps. You just have glow-in-the-dark trees. It's kind of great until you're the one that has the tree planted outside your window and you're like, cut down the street lamp tree. But I still think it's brilliant. I think there's a ton to be discovered there. And there's a ripe opportunity. And the last thing, I think, is robots. I think these robots are at the infancy. I think that we're on page 1 of a 1,000-chapter book. We're just starting to realize the potential. There's a robot that some friends of mine are working on that is learning how to learn. Whoa. Once it knows how to learn, it could get smart real fast because we could just feed it the internet. And now it could make correlations between things that we could never fathom making correlations. Give me a robot that can ask a great question, and I'll show you the future. So keep your questions coming, make them smart, and imagine the impossible. Thank you.
Thanks, mate. Awesome.
Yep.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of energy there. So how about one more big round of applause for Ashton, please? Big round of applause. He spoke a lot. We're going to have some stools jump up here now for us to do Q&A. I want to let you know we're going to have a shortened version of the Q&A, but I think Ashton really hit on asking great questions. I think it was a great learning for us. And he had a really terrific perspective on there's no such thing as a dumb question. I think that was a really great learning. And I think all of us at school have heard that quote, right? I thought it was a fantastic outcome. I think he mentioned very specifically that great questions really tear down convention. And I think that was a really great position for us as well. And then I loved his perspective on time, both longevity as well as quality. And so I think I'm sure all of you really loved that session now from Ashton. So I'm going to invite our speakers back out here now. So I'm going to ask Marita, Cam, and then Ashton. Hopefully he's had a quick glass of water because I know he's been talking a lot. We'll jump straight back up on stage for a very quick Q&A session that you guys have posted for us. Big round of applause for our speakers, huh? All right. Let's get into some of these questions. So I've got one question quite specifically around entrepreneurialism and Australia. And I'm sure it'll be fine. Ashton, you can put on your best Australian accent. I've heard it. It's really good. So panel, what do you think are the biggest barriers and opportunities for Aussies who feel they have entrepreneurial flair? It comes from at Emmy Unicorn here. And I might go first to you, Marita, just so Ashton gets a bit of a breath because
Sure.
he's just come straight off the stage. Yeah.
Sure. So I think the biggest barrier in Australia is access to capital. It's something that entrepreneurs all over Australia experience, and so many of them actually go to Silicon Valley in order to raise money there. Even though they really want to start and base their companies in Australia, there's just not the risk appetite here for people to do really innovative things that require a lot of money. And so really good friends of mine have gone to San Francisco for a year, 2 years to raise money, get the capital, and they say to me, I really want to go back to Australia and start up a robotics manufacturing plant there, but who knows? It depends what the investors say, and a lot of investors want to be near their investments. In terms of advantages though, I think that Australia is a wealthy market, we're an innovative market, we're an early adopter market. In terms of smartphone penetrations, Australia has the highest penetration in the world, and we've consistently been amongst the top few in terms of smartphone penetration since 2010. So we're really innovative. We like the new things. We're open to new ideas. And even in the banking industry, actually, in terms of polymer notes, in terms of internet banking, I was in San Francisco in October last year, and I was just talking to my friends. They're all Stanford graduates. And they said, oh yeah, I pay rent by check. And I just looked at them and my jaw dropped, and I said, what, you pay your rent by check? And they said, yeah. So I have to go and post it 3 days before so that my landlord gets it in time. Then they have a whole office full of people that process these checks. And there were 5 of them there, and all of them said, this other one said, oh, I manually post it to my landlord. And I'm like, what is this? You guys work at Tesla, you work at Google, and you guys pay your rent by check? I've never paid rent by check before. So I think Australia is a really innovative market. I think that it was St. George's Bank that came up with net banking, the first bank to do so. So I think that if you're doing something innovative, Australia is a good place to test your ideas. So get it out into Australia. If it works here, it might work everywhere else around the world as well. But I think the other advantage that Australian entrepreneurs have is because Australia is such a small market, you have to think global from day one. And so even though you're testing on Australia, you're considering the rest of the world at the same time, which makes for good global entrepreneurs.
Yeah, excellent. Terrific. Ashton, how are you going? Get your breath back?
I never lost it.
Never lost it, sorry.
I can talk a lot. I think, is this thing shut off?
No, you're
there it
there.
goes. All right. Yeah.
What do you think? Australian opportunity, entrepreneur? I know you spoke a little bit about local governments, etc., which we have actually a very similar scenario to what you spoke about. But
yeah, I think most governments work under the same assumption of checks and balances, and checks and balances don't really jive with positive change because you're actually intentionally slowing things down and creating friction. But I think that there's opportunities for entrepreneurs to literally come in right underneath governments and build what it is that they lack. I did a little bit of research and found a ton of interesting startups that are down here. But I think I found this one piece of research that was kind of interesting to me. It said that Australian entrepreneurs are 43% less ambitious as far as taking big swings of the bat than what American entrepreneurs are. And I don't know if that's true. It was from 2012, and it was a study that was done. And I don't even know how you measure that, but I think that the big thing is, I think you're right, there's an extraordinary testing pool. Israel actually creates a ton of really interesting technology, and the way that they do it is, Israel's pretty boxed in. So the test market for Israel is really just Israel. It's kind of an island. And what they have the ability to do is test things in this extraordinarily small environment and then expand it out globally. And so there was a guy, Shai Agassi, who built this company called Better Way, which was a battery changing electric car company. It's no longer going, but the premise is something that Elon Musk actually stole and then put into Tesla, which are these battery changing stations that you can drop the battery directly out of the car, charge it, and then put it back in. But the theory only worked in Israel because it was this closed market. And I know a lot of companies that do a ton of testing, early testing in the Australian market. So you guys actually have some products that you don't even realize are the most advanced in the world that are existing here because people like to test here because it's a closed ecosystem.
Yeah, traditionally Australia's always been a tester bed for pharmaceutical and retail as well, for that reason, right, before they take it overseas. So Cam, you got a comment just before we...
Yeah, Australia is a long, long way from a lot of things, but we have some incredible talent here. And I think even looking at my own experience within Black Milk and working with James, people laughed at us, thought, you're going to build a business in Australia, in fashion, made in Australia, make it successful globally. And I think the beautiful thing is the cost of technology and how accessible it is these days. You can literally give it a go. And when you're solving a problem so niche, but when you think globally, you could be actually solving a problem for millions and millions of people around the world. And I think that's a powerful thing that I see lots of Australians doing, thanks to technology.
Excellent. All right, listen, I'm going to just go one question because we're already almost out of time. I'm going to throw it straight to you, Ashton, if you don't mind. You've supported a lot of startup companies, and what's the most important thing you look for when you're deciding whether to invest or not?
I think there are several things, but it really starts with the people. There's no company in the world that wasn't built by someone, and that someone had a determination that was unparalleled. And I always like to ask a question to founders when I'm first talking to them, and I always ask them, like, what was your high school hustle? Like, what's the thing that you did in high school that, like, to like either break the law or like make money like early on? Sometimes it was like somebody just like selling candy bars out of their locker room or whatever it was, or like selling subscriptions to food, services inside of the school. But like almost every great entrepreneur that I know had something that was like their hack, like their high school hack that they did that was like to make things easier and make things better. I had a thing when I was in school, when we would take tests, if they were true-false tests, we had a code that we would send around to the entire room so that everyone got every answer right on tests. And it worked for a while, and that was like my hack.
Excellent. All right, hey, listen, ladies and gentlemen, we're actually out of Q&A time for our speakers, so I'm going to ask all of you to give them an amazing round of applause for their time today. And thank you guys very much. Thanks, man. Fantastic. I'll speak to you soon. Thanks, Marita. Thanks, Cam. Thanks, mate. All right, big round of applause for our speakers, guys. Thank you very much. Jump on down. All right, ladies and gentlemen, very end of the session, I'm just going to very quickly invite the Managing Director for ANZ Lenovo up on stage with me quickly now, Matt Codrington. Very important guy because he's the one who's paying for the 2 giveaways today. So he is very important for us right now. So he's donated the prizes. So Matt, what do you think of the day?
Wow, what a day. Look, Marita, making a difference, running a program that went global, affects thousands, inspires thousands of people. Cam, not only asking questions to make a better product, but building a community around that product. That's fairly impressive. And Ashton, he was awesomely impressive. Asking the question, all framing around asking. That was particularly motivational for me. So very, very impressed with the speakers.
Excellent.
Now we've got
2 winners.
2 winners. Yoga Tablet 2 Pros. I've got the winners' names in my hand here. So this is for the most creative post for the day.
Yes.
So let's start first of all. Trisha Iara. She posted, "You are not entitled to anything, but there is nothing you can't earn." And that's the quote from Taylor Swift and Ashton. So Trisha, if you'd come up, please.
Trisha's here. Woo. Hey, congratulations, Trisha. Well done. Take it with you. Quick photo. Where's the photo? Here he is. Here he is. Here he comes. Great, thank you. Thanks. Congratulations, Trisha. Big round of applause for Trisha, ladies and gentlemen.
Well done, Trisha. The second one, most creative post, Deborah Tobias. Enthusiasm can protect you from anything. Where's Deborah?
Great, big round of applause, thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you had a great time today at Lenovo Tech My Way. I'm sure you all took a lot out of it. I know I personally did, I'm sure Matt did as well. We want to thank you all for your contribution and your engagement today, and obviously for all your support. So thank you very much for coming. There are some Lenovo show bags for you on the way out. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the beautiful sunshine that's now coming out, and have a great day, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Hey guys.
How do we go, all right? I think I might have pissed off. That's all right.